9 seconds remain. Lynn Lorenzen checks out of the lineup.
Look at the house.
The most prolific scorer of all time. Six seconds, 5 seconds.
This is the story of the Iowa girl, a 70-year story retold every day by countless mothers to their daughters. A story about a girl who dreams one day she'll be a champion, the best of them all.
Jill and I got together and set our goal because we were going to be the only 2 girls in our family of, you know, my mom's kids and my Aunt Francine's kids that didn't make it to the state tournament. So we decided we were going to set a goal. And the only way we would make it is when Jill was a senior and I was a freshman. And so that meant coming in and working hard as an 8th grader, setting a goal to go to the state tournament. I mean, most freshmen are setting goals to, you know, make the varsity team, and I was setting it to go to the state tournament. I mean, I was already planning on making varsity starting and, you know, playing with my sisters. So, you know, that was the main goal. And so that took basketball camps, and that took a lot of practice with my sister, and just, you know, to achieve that goal.
This is the story of how the Iowa girl got to be the luckiest girl in the country, making her dream come true in the big barn at Vets Auditorium in Des Moines.
It is important to have goals and to have dreams. And if you really want to dream, you can achieve it. And to work for that dream is very important. If we don't have dreams, life doesn't have too much meaning. And if we do give 100%, we have succeeded.
This is a story about hope. Hope for the 420 teams that start the season quietly, like the whisper of the first November snow. This is the story of the Cinderella team who end their season like the flurry of the last blizzard of the year. Unpredictable, tender, tough, always a surprise ending, but not always the ending dreamed about.
I thought you played your hearts out. I really did. Guards, excellent work again at court. And we've just now completed what has to be called a spectacular season. A spectacular season. We're 18-6, and there aren't too many teams that can say that they got the quarterfinals. Okay?
An ending that redefines winning for nearly 1 million fans as we watch the Iowa girl battle for the roses each March at the Iowa Girls State Basketball Tournament.
Let's get on you, bud.
This is the story about conviction and action of the Iowa girl and the small schools and communities she grew up in.
They accepted their victories with humility, and they treated their opponents with dignity. They were excellent ambassadors of our school and excellent ambassadors of our community, and we congratulate them and we thank them.
About the heart, courage, and character of the Iowa girl in the face of overwhelming odds.
It takes some hard knocks and some guts and, you know, and you know, everything that it takes for an offensive player, too.
Kim Peters was announced as the captain of the all-tournament team, and it's the only time that I remember ever, and I'm quite sure it never happened before or since, that the entire house came to their feet when she walked out on the floor to accept that all-tournament team captain's medal. And here's the girl that had been handicapped, I guess, from birth, as far as I know, and did not have the assets to play with that all the other girls had. And yet she was far and away, just no question, the most outstanding player of that given tournament.
From the first all-girls basketball game played at Dubuque High in 1898 to the struggle to keep competitive girls basketball alive by a small group of school superintendents, they founded the Iowa Girls High School Athletic Union in 1927. This assured the Iowa girl her unique place in the history of her state and in the history of women's sport.
There was a historic event in the fall of 1927 at a point that the Boys Board of Control had decided that they would no longer support girls' athletics. And since 1922, girls' athletics had been administered in the state by the Boys Board of Control. They said that the girls should not be in the athletic arena. It was at that point then that the superintendents of the state gathered together in a hastily called meeting and said, we will see to it that there's girls' athletics. We'll create our own athletic union in order that the Iowa girl may have an opportunity to compete in the athletic arena. And as a final statement, a rather historic statement given by John Agins, the then superintendent of schools at Mystic, Iowa, he addressed the group and he said, the Boys Board of Control will be standing in the center of the track when the train runs them down. And from that point on, the superintendent of schools, in my mind at least, must be given credit across the state of Iowa for the continuation of girls' athletics.
This is the story about commitment by the thousands of talented and energetic coaches whose patience, kindness, and caring never cease to challenge and support the Iowa girl to excellence.
I mean, I really loved playing basketball, but there were times when I was kind of tired of it, but I would kind of force myself to go down to the park and shoot baskets. I remember, like a lot of girls in the state of Iowa, you know, to make some extra money, you know, I would detassel corn. And, you know, of course, you have to start like about 5 in the morning, and sometimes you work till 6 at night, whatever. But I gave a commitment to my coach that I'd still shoot baskets, you know. And I'd be so tired from detasseling corn all day, but I would talk myself, I'd psych myself up, and I'd say, well, you don't really have to shoot any baskets, Denise. Just take your basketball down there to the park and just hold it in your hand and just look at the basket. So I would do that, because of course I'd end up shooting.
The challenge of getting a girl to go beyond what she probably thought she could do was always an interest to me. And they always seemed to be the underdog role. You know, in a school, the boys were the super athletes, the big macho guys in school. I wanted to see the girl become the super athlete and the macho person or the strong type of person. I like to see them grow from skinny little girls that cry a little bit to strong athletes that can handle success and failure.
So the Ankeny Hawkeyes, Dick Rasmussen. And the head coach of the Norwalk Warriorettes, Jim King.
Girls basketball 1980, here's Jim Zabel.
It's good, and Ankeny wins the game by a score of 71-69. Pandemonium on the floor.
And trying on the famous red coat is the champion himself, the coach of the champions, Dick Rasmussen of Ankeny.
Back then it was my life. I didn't want to do anything else but play basketball, and that's what I did. And Carol Rugland brought that out in us an awful lot. He was the coach there. And talk about discipline, he disciplined you. He expected out of you, and you gave, or you weren't on the team. It's as simple as that.
Montezuma coach Carol Rugland and Manila coach Larry Bullock.
Here's Van Cleve with the ball. 4 seconds to play, 76-59. 1 second.
And there's the ball game. Montezuma wins the state championship for the second straight time. We're going to be down to interview the gals, and they'll have the presentation of awards. And the final score is Montezuma 76, Manila 59.
The year is 1971. The girl from Montezuma is ending a brilliant career in which her team for 4 years has won 115 games and lost only 3. 3 times she's been first all-tournament, captain of the 1970 all-tournament team, the leading tournament scorer. 2 different years, she brought an undefeated team to the state and won the championship. First all-state in 1970 and 71. She was named in 1973 when playing for Home Federal, first All-America. She represented the United States on the American team in the Pan American Games. Now Mrs. Tony Rossetti Jr. of Hagerstown, Maryland, Hall of Famer from Montezuma 1971, the unforgettable Sandy Van Cleve.
This is the story about pageantry.
Friday night, my goal had always been to stand on the court when they play the national anthem. I'll never forget standing with my teammates and holding hands, and we're facing the big board to just, you know, sing the national anthem, and that was what it was all about.
And incidentally, you know, we were the first event in the then new Veterans Memorial Auditorium. As I watched that, I became quite concerned as in relation to the future attendance at the state basketball tournament, because the second year there, we had a very poor championship game. We had charged those people $2 to see the championship game. We had about 14,500 people there, and as they left the auditorium, I stood down in the center of the floor and I kept thinking, this is not very good. This is not going to work, because they didn't get their money's worth. It was a poor ball game, and that's something we have no control over. But the one thing we would have control over would be entertaining the crowd some way. And it was at that point that I decided we had to have something down on the floor, entertainment-wise, that would cause people to leave the building and remember the good rather than the accidental bad championship game that we ended up with.
Wayne Cooley's just a master showman. You know, he knows what works, and he's a great promoter. You know, there's a lot of boys performing at the girls' state tournament, and he brings romance into it. You know, when he's got those, he brings the boys out. I've seen him bring the boys out to sweep the floor and have them in tuxedos, and he turns them into heartthrobs for every high school girl in Iowa, and they squeal over him and all that. And
This is the story about tradition, where the Iowa girl is held out as special for her discipline, for her achievements, and for her sportsmanship.
To have that recognition, have people witnessing your, witnessing your performance and your skill level and your fruit of your labor, how hard you've worked, it just really meant a lot to me that people would want to come out and see me play,
This is the story about the game of basketball. How the game has changed from a three-court ladylike game where jumping wasn't allowed to the two-court game Iowa became famous for. And the game keeps changing.
Jenny was hollering for it. Get back all the way back.
And while the game was changing, so were the fashions.
The woman who came to be associated with wearing the bloomers was Amelia Bloomer, and she was active in the suffragette movement and actually lived in Council Bluffs for a while. The bloomers liberated women in many ways, and they came to be worn in basketball because they were more modest.
This is the story about uniquely gifted people, behind the scenes and some in front, who made the tournament special.
The team selected by the sports writers and sportscasters at this tournament. The guards, Michelle Rickenbacker, Southeast Hope.
And this is a story about the people who followed the story and their organizations.
Hello, sport fans. This is Bill Riley speaking with highlights of the 54 Girls State Tournament. This 1954 tournament was one of the greatest, and for each session, capacity crowds jammed Drake Stadium in Des Moines. Newspaper, radio, and television coverage of the tournament again, greatest in history.
And I'm talking to a young lady who's crammed about as much in 27 years as it's entirely possible. In fact, I'm telling you, I'm a little bit envious of what she's been able to do in her young lifetime.
This is the story about the Iowa girl and what made her special in a very important time in her life and in ours. When you think about the Girls State Basketball Tournament, you think about the girls, the Iowa girl. Over 500,000 of them who've played the game. But every tournament had its sweetheart. A girl that captured the hearts of the fans because of her determination, her skill, her smile, her achievements in the face of adversity. We call these girls our sweethearts. Here are just a few. In 1921, it was Lottie Dorcas Anderson, the shooter from Audubon.
They told me that the reason that they called me Lottie was because I made a lot of baskets. That was my nickname, especially when I was and of course I was just at state tournaments in 20 and 21.
Irene Silka scored 126 points in one game and starred for her home team of Maynard in 1926. In the 40s, Arliss Van Langen and Dorothy Welp from Kamrar and Helen Corrick of Keswick. They ushered in a new style of play that excited hometown fans and tournament goers alike. High-scoring forwards, and girls basketball has never been the same.
Gentlemen, I want to particularly call your attention to our movie camera that brings you one of the thrills of the '48 Classic, and it's just about to be. And here it is. Here goes Van Langen up for a shot at the basket. That goes right in there. Ladies and gentlemen, that basket broke the all-time scoring record because Van Langen has scored 142 points in this big tournament of 1948.
The 50s rocked in with a set of twins, the Billerbecks, Francis and Francine, who battled valiantly to shut down the great forward from Monona, 6'4" Norma Schulte in the 1952 championships. And they won the tournament for Rhinebeck.
Rhinebeck, 61, Monona, 55. The Monona girls just couldn't match the balance, the scoring power, the great defensive work of the Rhinebeck team.
Dandy Sandy Feet, the Garnavillo ace forward who took the state title twice for Garnavillo in 1953 and 54.
In 1953, Des Moines was honored by the presence of Garnavillo's Candy Kids in their peppermint striped suits. Dandy Sandy, alias Sandra Feet, would have to be Garnavillo's star cager. After all, she was crowned All-American only 5 times. Another Garnavillo star was Jean Overbeck, now Mrs. Jean Sandry of Davenport. Jean was born with a hip injury that permanently stiffened her leg. She overcame this handicap to become, at graduation, one of Iowa's 5 greatest scorers of all time.
Virginia Henniges, the only girl to play 4 championships, played for West Central of Maynard from 1956 to 59.
Back to Fleming. Off balance shot, she still drops it through. 39 points now for Fleming for the night.
There it is. Maynard is the 1958 state champion, 59 to 51. The final scoring on the game very quickly. Vivian Fleming, 39 for the game and 200 for the tournament, an all-time record. Virginia Henniges, 36 for the game and 141 for the tournament.
And in 1956, Sylvia Froning of Garrison racked up a record 200 points that stood for 10 years. The unbelievable Denise Long from the Cinderella team of Union Whitten pitted against the experienced tournament play of Everly's Jeanette Olson in the 1968 championship.
Union Whitten by 1. Make it 3.
The battle between these two tournament favorites stole our hearts for years. Never before or since had there been such a matchup as the famous Long-Olson game of 1968. Kim Peters, the one-armed guard from Andrew, captained the all-tournament team and received a rare standing ovation. Molly Boland from Moravia set hearts on fire with her blonde hair and high scoring. Deb Coates from Mediapolis.
There's Debbie Coates. What's her fake? There you see that fast jump shot of hers from the bottom of the free throw circle.
A great
First
athlete.
2 points in this game.
Lori Bauman, the great player from East Des Moines.
75.5% free thrower. She can give her team the lead in the game, and she does. Breaks the ice, puts the ball through the hoop, and that's the first score of this game. 1-0 East.
Connie Yori, the Ankeny forward, who went on to a distinguished college career.
Yori slides in under there. Can't do it. Second shot is up. Second shot is good. She's fouled.
What a great athlete.
Oh, man, you got to give her credit for that. Connie Yori.
Jan Jensen from Elkhorn Kimballton. And the greatest all-time scorer and Naismith Trophy winner, Lynn Lorenzen from Ventura.
Third-rated Lady Vikes, averaging 100 points and change per game. And Lorenzen, who's
He's
averaging...
just one incredible athlete, Mike.
And Lorenzen works the baseline.
And against everybody.
These are just a few of the Iowa girls we've fallen in love with over the years.
Roaring Twenties brought ragtime music, bloomers, and girls basketball to small Iowa communities.
Men and women worked together as pioneers. Women were accustomed to doing demanding physical tasks, and basketball to them was fun, enjoyable, and it was a change from work, and they did not think it taxed their bodies too much.
The first annual Iowa High School Girls Basketball Tournament was an invitational sponsored by Drake University on March 14, 1920. That year, Correctionville beat Nevada 11-4. But in 1921, Audubon captured the state crown with a 21-11 win over Ottumwa. Dorcas Anderson played on Audubon's winning team.
I was running center the first year I played ball, but then after the first year, I became a forward, and that was the position I played as long as I was in Audubon High School.
They used a court that was divided into 3 equal divisions. So there were 2 forwards, 2 centers, a jumping center and a side center, and 2 guards on each team. So the players were very limited in the amount of space that they covered.
They started basketball in Irwin in 1918, and I started playing in 1920. And then I played the 4 years that I was in high school. Oh, there wasn't near as much contact. We weren't to touch them at that time, you know. And wasn't near the action, the activity there is today. We didn't fall to the floor like they do today, you know.
Oftentimes, the coach would have to load up all the team members in her car if she had a car. And oftentimes when they traveled, it would be muddy and the roads were not surface, so they spent a lot of time on those muddy trips pushing and driving. Some of the gyms were so small, and this went on into the 30s and 40s, that the sidewalls were occasionally in bounds. So you can imagine them running back and forth above a store in an opera house. The gyms were much smaller, of course, and they had to avoid hitting those hot stoves or even one that had cooled down, because if an errant pass would hit a stove, there'd be a spray of soot in the room, and they had lots of handicaps that we don't have today.
The end of the 1920s confirmed the sport of girls basketball as an institution, as the Iowa Girls High School Athletic Union was formed to protect the right of all girls to play our most favorite sport, basketball.
I also think the fact that as a rural state, there wasn't a great deal of fun things, entertainment to do, and so this became one of the entertainment features for communities and also for the participants.
The winning teams in the 1920s.
The tournament is as famous for its unexpected March storms as it is for its emotional play. Take 1931. Many of the Avoca fans battled snowdrifts to reach the finals Saturday night and cheer their team on to victory. And with just 30 seconds to play, Avoca tied Centerville with a score of 15-15. In overtime, Avoca wins 17-15. Another infamous March blizzard started blazing when the 1959 final played at Veterans Auditorium. 5,000 spectators spent the night in the auditorium, and this reporter, then a disc jockey for KIOA in Des Moines, heard about the 1,000 stranded at vets and walked 6 miles to my radio station, picked up phonograph records, walked back, and held an all-night dance at the auditorium until daybreak. And just when you think modern conveniences, good highways, and communications make tournament life more controllable, the ice of 1990 hit with a vengeance on the capital city during the tournament. The lights flickered off and on at the tournament, but a backup power system kept the ball in play.
Despite the unpredictable weather, the tournament always goes on. And in the 1930s, the tournament winners were
a beautiful sight. We're happy tonight, walking in a winter wonderland. Gone away.
In the 1940s, high-scoring games, local fans, and media coverage turned the tournament into a statewide media event. The Iowa Daily Press Association, now the Iowa Newspaper Association, was and remains an important reason why the tournament has been such a success over the years. These early reporters covered the tournament for their hometown newspapers. Some reporters were officials, as well as tournament sponsors and workers. Such was the case with Des Moines Register sports editor Jack North.
Jack North saved the state basketball tournament, much in the same manner that the superintendent of schools throughout the rural areas caused the creation of the Girls Athletic Union. He had developed a following across the state, helped immensely, of course, by the fact that he was the editor of the sports editor of the Des Moines Tribune. But both the boy and girl athlete across the state looked upon Jack North as being their champion of athletics. He'd selected the all-state teams for years and years and years, ever since the beginning of time, practically.
When you get right down to it, Jack North didn't cover the girls' tournament because he was running it, and somebody else always wrote the stories on it. But all during the year, he was picking the all-state teams, and he was making the ratings, and he was a very instrumental man in there. His prestige across the state was tremendous. The Des Moines Register was instrumental in starting the tournament in its present form about 1926, and they did it as a circulation builder. And they assigned two young sports writers, Bert McGrain and Jack North, to run the thing, and they did, and they ran it for many years until after World War II, probably until about 1950. And it was something that the people at the Register saw could increase circulation, and it did. It had tremendous interest.
Along with Jack North, other media personalities became associated with the tournament.
And the Iowa press makes it, tells the story about what's happening here and who you see, especially in girls basketball, a lot of the hometown hero thing, or heroine, or however you'd like to say it, but, the small town's girlfriend and the superstar basketball player. That's nice stuff. I mean, it reads real well. And we start telling those stories here in Iowa, and the next thing you know, you got the national press coming in, and they want a piece of it, too. Because it's a happy story, it really is, and it should be.
The emphasis on women in sports is something new in most parts of the country, but not here in Iowa. The Iowa Girls High School Basketball Tournament is in its 57th year. The Sweet 16 single elimination tournament has been going on for a week.
The field has been reduced to just two teams. In earlier semifinal action, Lakeview Auburn in red took on Washington of Cedar Rapids. Washington opened strong, but in the end, Lakeview Auburn, the defending champion of this tournament, prevailed. They knocked off Washington, the largest school to make the state tournament, 56-45. So Lakeview Auburn will have a chance to defend its title. If Cedar Rapids, Washington is the largest high school here, Andrew is the smallest. They're in the yellow here playing Manila in the other semifinal game. Under the rules for Iowa girls basketball, there are 6 players on each team, 3 at each end of the court. That means that 3 girls play defense all the time.
In fact, I remember the first tournaments I did on radio before television out at Old Drake Fieldhouse, screaming and hollering and oh, the excitement. There was, and the noise. The Veterans Memorial Auditorium was open, and the tournament went on television. That's about the time that television first came into the Des Moines market. It was between 1954 and 1956, along in there. And, well, I think it just brought it to so many people. I can remember there were times back in the days when I was doing it year after year where it was the highest rated feature of the whole winter, maybe, or at least the whole weekend. Outrated network shows and everything else. A lot of people who'd never seen it were just fascinated by the skills of these girls.
Not every reporter liked the tournament, especially Des Moines Register columnist Donald Call. But even Call couldn't resist this.
Donald Call, for you folks out of the Des Moines area, or maybe out of the Ohio area, has become an anti-hero of this tournament. He's a Des Moines Register columnist who has pretty much razzed and attacked girls basketball, but underneath it all, many of us think that he deeply loves it. He said the girls basketball is like making people watch a milking contest or watching people get haircuts.
And if the media found the girls basketball tournament unforgettable, the Iowa girl has found these reporters
unforgettable. That's what you are. Unforgettable, though near or far. Like a song of love that clings to me. How the thought of you.
Just like the media support in the early years established girls basketball as a big sport in Iowa, the game itself changed from a low-scoring, slow-paced, three-court sport to a fast-paced, high-scoring game of two-court basketball. The winning teams of the 1940s and their stars remain as unforgettable as the media that followed them.
And forevermore, that's how you'll stay. That's why, darling, it's incredible that someone so unforgettable thinks that I am unforgettable too.
Hello, baby.
Welcome to the rocking 50s, signaling a new generation of basketball greats, televised tournaments, and ushering in the decade of entertainment at the tournament.
It's a spectacle, it's a carnival, or really a festival, I guess is what you'd say. And a lot of what's the very best about Iowa life is wound up in what makes the Iowa high school girls basketball tournament so popular.
Like an Egyptian. All together now, tie me kangaroo down, sport, tie me kangaroo down. Sandy, Yankee Doodle, do or die. For freedom and live for liberty.
The Girls Union and puts on a show where you can have a lot of fun even if you don't have any interest out there. I tell you this, as a working reporter, when I was on Deadline, I used to hate those halftime shows that went about 35 minutes because I would miss a lot of deadlines, but they're great shows and there's great showmanship.
At the 1951 tournament, all eyes, over 260,000 of them, cheered on their favorite team while watching the championship game on TV. Harry Burrell, announcer for WOI-TV, was there.
But all of a sudden the people found out that it was interesting, that it was exciting and everything like that. So the next year they started coming up with sellouts on Thursday night, Wednesday night, Tuesday night, and everything like that, so that it built the crowd. And there is no question, even Wayne would talk about that at the time, that it made the big difference. It made girls basketball. J. Walter Thompson is involved in the putting on of this very first one. And the young man that they had out here, his name I can't remember now, but he had sort of talked the New York office into doing this and everything like that. And on Friday, the day, we're going to do Friday and Saturday. And Friday, the day goes on, there's no picture. The day goes on and on and on, and there's picture. The game is to start at 7:30, and at 7:24, there is no picture. And this young man is going crazy. He says, I wonder where I will work next, and everything like this. And all of a sudden, at 7:25, we have a picture.
With Hansel, the 1951 state champ. This is Bill Riley, your state tournament public address announcer for the past 4 years, to present pictorial highlights of the 1951 state tournament. This indeed was a historic tournament. For the first time, television cameras from station WOI in Ames carried the thrills and excitement of the girls' tournament into thousands of homes throughout the state.
That year, 25 radio stations and 30 newspapers covered the tournament, and the 50s had plenty to cover. The era of the tall forward had hit the state, starting with the great Norma Schulte from Monona. 6' 4" Schulte could shoot right and left-handed hook shots accurately from 25 feet.
Number 35, Hubacher, and of course always passing into the great pivot, Norma Schulte.
In 1952, Monona battled Rhinebeck for the title. Rhinebeck coach Max Liggett positioned Francine Billerbeck in front of Schulte with 6 minutes to go in the third quarter. And while Francine held Schulte's normally high-scoring game to just 7 shots, Francine's twin sister Frances pumped the basket 16 times, and Rhinebeck won 61-55. The Garnavillo team of 1953 and 54 sported new uniforms and a disciplined forward court. Their scorers, Sandra Feet and Jean Overbeck, made as much a sensation on the court as their new uniforms, which earned them the name Candy Kids.
We made a set of suits out of striped satin, and it was a white satin with a red print on it, a red stripe print. And I think that Bob Mullins, he was a fellow that was coaching. He was coaching and he was also the telegraph operator at Monticello. And he sold suits on the side. But he sold these suits, I think it was to Colesburg. And they took one look at them and said, hey, we don't want those. The stripes in these skirts are not red. They're kind of pinkish. So Bob went down the road and stopped at Garnavillo. They tried them on. They liked them. They said, we'll take them. Well, consequently, I'm not sure about my figures, but I think with those suits, they had one of the longest winning streaks in girls' basketball history. And at one time, I heard from them that they wouldn't wash them, they wouldn't take them off, almost anything, because they didn't want to break that streak.
In 1955, the tournament was moved to the then new Veterans Auditorium, dubbed the Big Barn. Other great players and the winning teams of 1950s include Ardith Ann Mayers of Gilman and Verna Leckband and Mary Jan Leonard from Holstein, Vivian Fleming of Emerson, Virginia Henniges of West Central of Maynard, and Sylvia Froning of Garrison, Jan Armstrong of Eldora, and Bonnie Suncut of Meservey from the guard court.
Hello, emptiness. I feel like I could die. Bye-bye, my love, goodbye.
1, 2, 3, 4!
The 60s brought the state the best tournament game in its history, starring 2 of the most explosive, dynamic players of all time, Everly's Jeanette Olson and Union Whitten's Denise Long.
They're calling it the Dream Game because it brings together not only the teams ranked number 1 and number 2 in the state all season, but also the 2 greatest scorers in tournament history. Tonight's game culminates the long drive down the tournament trail that started more than 3 weeks ago. And the 2 teams meeting for the title could not have been better chosen if the tournament had been played to a script. Everly, from northwest Iowa, is unbeaten and was ranked number 1 in the polls all season. The Cattle Feeders won the title 2 years ago, finished 3rd last year, And once again, they feature the fabulous shooting of three-time All-Stater Jeanette Olson, who averaged more than 58 points a game during the season. Everly's opponent, Union Witten from Central Iowa, is appearing at state for the first time. But what an appearance. The Cobras, ranked number 2 in Iowa all year, have rolled roughshod over every tournament opponent so far, averaging more than 100 points a game. And in sensational junior Denise Long, they have a player who already has shattered every individual scoring mark to date, including a high of 93 points in one game.
When I was in high school, I practiced an hour a day, and that was all year round. Even before high school time, I started in junior high, and I also practiced an hour a day. Well, I had a lot of good role models. Our school had quite a few excellent basketball players, Peg Peterson. I could go on naming several, and they were all kind of my idols, and my priority was to be the best basketball player that I could be and to be the best team player that I could be.
I witnessed Union Witten playing in the district championship games and losing to Wellsburg 3 years in a row when my sister played, and that was a real big disappointment to me. And I think that factor right there kind of behooved me to really dedicate myself to the sport. My coach asked me to practice 3 to 4 hours, or excuse me, he asked me to practice a half hour a day, and instead I practiced about 3 to 4 hours a day. I remember one time coming back from a practice. I think I don't know whether it was probably maybe a sophomore or something. And yeah, I was a sophomore, and Debbie Calloway, the other forward on the team, she had a car, and so after practice she would drive me home. And I remember one time she said to me, she says, "Denise, what's wrong with you? Every once in a while I catch you in a trance." And I remember as she was pulling up in front of my house, I remember looking at her and I remember saying, "Well, Debbie, that's because I want to be the best player that's ever played this game." You know, and I don't know why I said it, I just said that to her, and I was very serious, and she just kind of looked at me and she goes, "Oh," you know. So I don't know exactly when I started feeling that way, but I just know I felt that way. And I also remember being maybe an 8th grader and a freshman, watching the girls being interviewed by Jim Zabel on TV and feeling very envious, you know, wanting to be in their spot.
Jeanette Olson, tightly guarded, but she still gets ready for that shot, and that's the question mark tonight. Can either guard court prevent the other star from scoring? Olson of Everly and Denise Long of Union Witten.
I can remember the final minutes of the game. I was luckily I was fortunate to shoot the 2 free throws that sent it into overtime.
If she makes this one, the score is tied at 101. It's up. It's good. The score is tied at 101.
I know when Jeanette Olson made those 2 free throws to send the game into overtime, for some reason, and don't ask me why, I got an extreme surge of confidence that we were going to get the ball to start the overtime, and I knew we were going to win.
The game is finally over. The game finally ends.
There you have it, 113 to 107. The championship game of Iowa girls high school basketball for 1968. And already they're calling it the greatest game ever played for a state title in Iowa.
I thought the momentum was switching for us since we tied it up into overtime, and I thought we were going to pull it out. Real strong forwards such as Denise and her cousin, who did an excellent job, Cindy, I believe is her name, just came on and finished us off.
If there's one player that I had ever watched playing that I had a lot of respect for, it would have been Jeanette Olson. She epitomized to me what an athlete really is. I just marveled at her, and to have one person be the loser in a game, as far as total points, you know, it made me feel bad.
But the greatest player, just without any question, we've ever had in the state of Iowa was Denise Long. She could do more things than any other forward. She could go further from the basket and be a scoring threat than any other forward that I've ever seen.
The game highlighted the 60s, but here are the rest of the winners in this decade and their star players. Part of what makes the tournament is its tradition, its ceremonies. Wayne Cooley is responsible for developing those into memorable moments for the Iowa girl and her fans.
The breakfast was really neat. We got to meet all the teams, Sweet 16 teams. You know, everybody's honored there. It's not just one team. Everybody is. So they all get acclaimed as, you know, the sweetheart teams coming in.
You know, you have the Parade of Champions, you have just watching the games and the other teams compete, and just being part of just the whole atmosphere. Friday and Saturday nights are wonderful. The pageantry, oh, wonderful. The flags and the singing and the dancing routines, you know, that's all part of the state tournament. So it didn't really matter if you weren't the state champion. Of course, everyone wants to be, but to be part of the Sweet 16 is, you know, highly enjoyable.
Slow but steady expansion.
Appreciate your being with us, and good luck to you.
Thank you very much, Bob.
Where did you come from, baby? And ooh, won't you take me back that way? Won't you, baby? Tenderoni, you got to be. Spot my need, just sugar fly with me. Don't you know now is the...
Stufford with 5. And on the end at the buzzer from three-point range. 45-42. And Western Dubuque wins it.
The 70s marked a trying decade for the Iowa girl, and a decade of national triumph and acknowledgement. This is the decade when the federal government brought suit against the Iowa Girls High School Athletic Union.
The question before us this morning is this: should six-player basketball be legal? Some people say no, that it discriminates against the girls who play it because they play either just offense or just defense, and so don't have a chance to develop into complete basketball players, which puts them at a tremendous disadvantage competing for college basketball scholarships against girls who play five-player basketball because they play offense and defense, and so are complete basketball players. To try to get to the bottom of this, we have come to Des Moines, Iowa, the six-player basketball capital of the United States. The fans here like six-player basketball.
I like it the way it is now because it's a break between the 5 and 6 players.
You mean it's a different game and you like it for that reason?
Yeah, that's the way I like it, because it's different.
The players here like six-player basketball.
I think six-player, it also lets more people be participating. Instead of 5 players, you have 6 people.
And Wayne Cooley likes six-player basketball. Wayne Cooley is the executive director of the Iowa Girls High School Athletic Union.
We had to get the federal government out of the picture, and thanks to Bob Ray, it was done. To solve this problem and this question, we're going to play both games, and every girl in the state, every Iowa girl will be accommodated. We'll have a tournament for 5 players, we'll have a tournament for 6 players, and of course, it's now history that it worked well for us.
Some of the greatest players came out of Iowa during the 70s. Molly Van Benthuizen, Deb Coates,
Karen Peterson almost loses the ball underneath the coach. Coach lays it up. The shot is good by Jill Harden, the 6-foot-tall freshman guard. Here's Debbie Coates.
and the great Sandy Van Cleve joined their winning teams and all the other winners of the 1970s.
There is a place for the Iowa girl that preserves her accomplishments and holds her out as special from the other girls who played the sport of basketball. And only the very best of the best walk down a darkened floor to receive the ultimate honor of being inducted into the Hall of Fame. A late professor of journalism at Drake University and a favorite son of sports enthusiasts everywhere in Iowa, the late Jim Duncan.
Tonight,
We induct 5 girls into the Hall of Fame of the Iowa Girls High School Athletic Union, girls representing 4 decades of play. And to each will go the Vicky Award, the award that's named after the Latin word victoria, for triumph. And as these inductees receive this award, they're representing the almost 500,000 Iowa girls who have played the game of basketball and have brought it to the state where 20% of all the All-Americas of every decade come from Iowa. An indication of how difficult the selection is of the Hall of Fame. There are 17 eligible All-Americas who are not yet in. And this, the most astounding statistic of all. The feat has never been equaled. It has never even been approached. In her last year, she scored over 4 times as many points as all the opponents put together. Now, Mrs. Eva Kaufman of Greeley, Colorado, the Hall of Famer from South English, who started her play 57 years ago, the legendary Eva Smith.
This is a song for you.
I was inducted in, I think I have the right year, 5 years after I graduated, so it was 76. And yes, Jim Duncan was there and was the announcer, and there's just no other sound that comes out of anything that he does the introduction for. You know, he's just, his voice was something that will live on forever.
Far away, so far away. This is a song for you. Far away from me. Sitting here all alone.
Being a part of basketball has made my life very, very worthwhile.
It was a different, it was like a euphoria. It was a feeling I'll probably never have again. It was just like a dream.
Oh yeah, that was really humbling. It was in 1975, and I was inducted in the High School Girls Sports Hall of Fame. And they called me out on the floor, and I went out there, and I had a standing ovation. I wasn't expecting that, and it just seemed like it lasted a long, long time.
What really made Jim Duncan was not just his voice, but his knowledge and his ability to research all the past about those Hall of Fame inductees and all the little stories, little quirks about them that were so interesting.
The man who made the Hall of Fame inductees feel so special is one of the men who contributed to the growth, the excellence, and the reputation of the Girls State Tournament. Nationwide, he was a multi-talented man.
And he was so devoted, see. He loved that Iowa girl. The best days are gone as far as those presentations are concerned. I love that man.
And the year was.
Hall of Fame, the Vicky Award, for the Latin word victoria, for triumph. We do it in recognition.
Joining forces with large and small schools, the Iowa Girls High School Athletic Union built a sturdy foundation for future tournaments that acknowledge both 6- and 5-player games. And both created great players. Perhaps the greatest all-around player was a dark-haired girl from Ankeny, Connie Yori.
Connie got the ball inside. She went up for a shot. While she was in the air, she changed the ball from her right hand to her left hand and put the ball in the hole. After the game, I says, Connie, why did you do that? How did you know that you had to change the ball in your hand while you're in the air? she says, well, the All-State guard, if I could just remember her name, would make the story better, but she said this guard was over here, the other guard was back there, my forward teammate was over here, my other one was over there, and I knew that if I kept going with this hand, that girl would block it there, but I knew because of who was over on this side, I could change it and make it. She knew where everybody was on the floor while she was in the air about to shoot a basket.
Yori, great leaping ability. Out jumps the gal who out-heights her.
And finally, a big city gave the tournament a star. Lori Bauman of East Des Moines.
Not very many schools recruited from our state, but Iowa had some of the greatest talents of the time in women's basketball. They had a quickness and they had a first step that was very important because of the 3-on-3 game, the 6-on-6 game that they played. They had certain outstanding shooting abilities. And to mind come Jody Busing, who played for South Hamilton, Lori Bauman, of course, who played for East High in Des Moines.
The 80s brought us a second-generation All-State girl. Her mother, Frances, and her aunt Francine played the tournament and won in the 50s. But the year is 1987.
But my parents played such an important role in my growth with basketball and, you know, the national record and even the state championship and even being recruited. Just, they were constantly supporting me, constantly helping remind me you can't believe everything people say and write about you because, you know, then your head wouldn't even fit in this room, you know. And they constantly kept me humble, kept me realizing that you can always be better. And so they played an excellent role that way. I didn't have to play basketball, none of us did. But they just wanted us to be involved, Mom especially. She wanted us to be involved in the high school activities.
And the foul will be called on Lorenzen.
Jan Jensen was also a standout.
It teaches you so much, and I think most of the schools being in smaller towns, rural settings, not all of them, but it gives such a community-type bonding, because everybody in small towns, like in my high school, you know, it would kind of close up shop, everyone, when the games were on. And when everybody pulls together, it teaches you so much, not just the competition, but a lot of camaraderie. And when you really learn to depend on each other and grow with people, I think that is very important to generations.
And here I've had 7 daughters and nieces, and I was always hoping that one of them would have some basketball ability. The very first time I went to a basketball game when Jan was playing, I remember very, very distinctly that when I watched her play, I thought, now it might be Jan.
Grandmothers have passed it to mothers, to daughters.
The tradition is deep in Iowa. Girls excelling in sport, excelling in their lives.
I coined the phrase, the Iowa girl, 36, 37 years ago. And it's been most rewarding because I've had a great romance and love affair with the Iowa girl. And to me, the Iowa girl is the girl from our public and private school student body who learns through the athletic competition area of constantly performing to the limit of her ability, the very limit of her ability.
I'm talking about Lynn Lorenzen, the greatest scorer we ever saw in Iowa. Lynn Lorenzen captured this state like only 2 or 3 people in all fields have captured this state's attention over the years before she graduated from Ventura High School, to the point where I went up and watched a couple of games in her little high school gym up there, and people from all over the state were driving to that little gym to watch her play because they wanted to see her play where, you know, in her own gym. And then she came down here and won the state tournament in a storybook game, you know, and it was fantastic.
You'll draw the analogy, David and Goliath once again, the big school against the small school.
It helps you grow up so much just because, you know, for me personally, being put in front of the media, you have to learn how to deal with people. And being 14 years old and 15 years old in front of a camera, you know, you have to grow up.
And you know that the success and the confidence that those girls gain by doing well in front of big-time audiences and in front of big-time press in Des Moines at the state tournament. That serves them well the rest of their lives.
Such girls grow into women of accomplishment, according to Wayne Cooley.
Having learned her lesson well of performing to the very limit of her ability, and incidentally to the mothers that are watching this, be reminded, please, that the very habit the girl develops of performing the limit of her ability will be the same habit she lives by.
Perhaps in Iowa, when the girls are out playing basketball, sweating, throwing some elbows here and there, performing in a very graceful and strong and powerful way in a leadership role, but being a part of a team, on a girls' basketball team, you belong, and your hard work is rewarded, and you learn to cooperate with people, and people support you in that. I think that can sustain you later when you're in an environment where people maybe look twice at you for being a woman athlete, and they question your chromosomal makeup or something, and you can say, no, I know I'm all right. I know I'm all right because there's a whole state of people that thinks I'm all right.
Let us salute not only one of the greatest daughters of Iowa, but one of the great citizens of America, twice All-American academic, the wing commander of 4,500 cadets, the first woman ever, the Rhodes Scholar, the pilot of a giant transoceanic plane, from Adele and Spencer, First Lady Award to Air Force Captain Michelle Johnson.
There are many people through the ages who have helped develop the Iowa girl, but none like the man who came in 1954 and forgot to leave.
And he took over a girls' union years and years and years ago that was having problems, a lot of problems, financial problems, a lot of disruptive things there, and really put it back on its feet and, you know, gave it national recognition. So I can't say enough about this man. I think he's one of the great athletic administrators of our time at any level that I've ever been connected with.
I've known Wayne, well, 31 years, and if you've ever talked to Wayne, he's an extremely intelligent person. He has great insight. He sees things that I think the average person doesn't see, and he loves to promote. I mean, he knows what makes people happy. And you can go to other states, and the women's program is not successful. And here's a man who took a state, and before Title IX, and before you were forced into doing it, and had everybody in the state playing but your real large schools. And, you know, to organize a union like that and to provide all the different sports like golf and tennis and swimming and basketball and softball, that's a heck of a job to do something like that.
We were doing pageantry long before the Orange Bowl got recognized as the leader in pageantry.
Wayne Cooley, I've met a couple times, and I've really enjoyed talking, you know, with him. And I think they really stand behind their girls' athletics. You know, it's hard in the college level versus the high school level, because the college level, after you get out of there, there's nowhere to go, you know. And so the girls' tournament really gives you a chance to excel, because once you get done, you're done.
He has created a program around Iowa high school girls that will generate big-time bucks and big-time attention. And because of that, there is money available to fund lots of other programs that wouldn't be happening unless an event like Wayne Cooley's was there.
The Iowa girl has had her own love affair.
Sometimes I wish someone could. Nobody does it quite the way you do. Why'd you have to be so good?
Whether you're a diehard fan,
it was unbelievable to me that it was on television in the state. I mean, the fact that they were playing was really neat, but the fact that they made such a production of it was what really floored me. We got into the spirit of things. It didn't take us long. it was always a habit with some good friends of ours that we'd either go to their house on Saturday night and watch the finals on TV at their house and have dinner, or they'd come to our house and with the kids, and we'd make an evening of a kind of a celebration.
This is something that ties the community together. It's good for the community. We've got a common drawing card, and this is what we do in the wintertime.
If you guys are enthused about Atlantic, you should be in Atlantic if you think what enthusiasm is.
And he said, you throw that candy up there and you just, you know, run around and act like a fool, which is what I've been doing, but everybody loves it, you know, and we just been having a great time. I take the thing off and I swing it around, you know, and throw a candy up, and students get all excited, and we've got the, you know, we got the adults excited. They're all standing up yelling, and it's just been great, you know, and it looks ugly as can be, but it just really works, you know. It's just really crazy.
A coach.
In terms of athletics, what we try to do is recognize and develop the talents that God has given to these girls, and that they use those talents, you know, to the best of their ability.
If I had to do it over again, I'd probably do exactly the same thing I did. I was so involved in my coaching and so into it that I really didn't ever have a desire to do anything else. I didn't really care to travel a lot when I was young. We did do some traveling, family vacations, but I just was so into it. I just loved coaching so much and was so interested in that. I couldn't hardly wait to get through with summer softball so we could start fall softball. And as soon as fall softball was over, of course, we'd start basketball.
And finally, a tribute to the coaches from the Iowa girl.
Did you ever know that you're my hero? And everything I would like to be. I can fly higher than an eagle. For you are the wind beneath my wings.
The Iowa girl will always be here. Though her uniforms may change, her heart remains the same. Through her achievements and through her commitment to the next Iowa girl.
I think I fulfilled my role, and now there's some little girl out there someplace that needs to fulfill her role.
You and I will travel far together. We'll pursue our little star together. We'll be happy as we are together. We may never get to heaven, but it's heaven at least to try. You and I are going on together till the time we have is gone together. Watch the evening drawing on together, growing older, growing closer, making memories that light the sky. That only time can make, that only love can make, that only we can make, you and we may never get to heaven, but it's heaven at least to try. and I are going on together till the time we have is gone together. Watch the evening drawing on together.